All right, guys, welcome to another Let's Play. Do you want to do the introductions?
Well, I'm Wayne, and this is Drekken.
Woo!
And it's Game of Thrones. And the last time we covered Game of Thrones, Drekken had not actually played any of the games.
But now I have.
But you've gone through episode 1, so you know what happens. It's like...
Guess what, guys? You get to continue to watch my jerky timeline. If you remember correctly, in the first one, I was a jerk, and I took everything the opposite of Wayne, and I will continue to do so.
Which you actually did in your own real playthrough, did you?
Yes, in my real playthrough, I did indeed take all the things you pretty much saw me do. I did leave what's-his-name to die. I thought about it if I should save it, but I'm like, no, never mind. I chose in the game originally to kill him.
So what were your actual thoughts as a hardcore Game of Thrones fan of the TV series? What were your thoughts after playing the first episode? Like, did it live up to it, or was it like, you know what, it's just not as good, or what?
You know what? I was talking about it a little bit later, is that it did really well. Like, it surpassed my expectations, which
were probably fairly low.
Yeah, that's a thing. That like, you know what? Telltale already gives it this level of expectation where I'm like, all right, I respect what you've done with the other series, but taking a franchise such as Game of Thrones is hard because there's a lot of lore and you can trip over a lot of things in that lore.
And people really like the series, so they're very protective of it.
Yes, and I'm one of those people. Yes. I'm very protective of the series. I'm very much in love with the series. I love the lore. I love the characters. You know, I don't want spoilers, but at the same time, I want a new adventure, and it did that for me. And the choices were so in tune. You know what? This is the one thing I really, really learned from both these episodes, is that you really feel like you're playing in someone's spider web. Like, you feel like someone is manipulating you, or someone could be manipulating you, or... You know, that your
choices have serious consequences that can come back and bite you in the ass.
Man, my scariest, the thing that scared me the most is King's Landing. Like King's Landing, anything that's King's Landing always keeps me on edge because I'm like, oh my gosh, who is like scheming to do something to me? Who is going to use? Is Cersei just planning to use me as a pawn against Lady Marjorie? Or is Lady Marjorie not what she seems? Yeah. Right? And it's one of these things, or even her friend. I'm like, is that friend really a friend? Right? Yeah. And to make that...
It's pretty cutthroat at court.
That's what I mean, though. Yeah. But to capture that in only a few options and the placement, I think this game did it, you know, really well.
Sounds nice, doesn't it?
So what did you think, though?
It's like I'm not as much of a hardcore Game of Thrones fan as you are, having actually only watched up to like season 3.
No,
I've still got a ways to go.
So did you know the placement of the Red Wedding and all that stuff?
Yeah, I was vaguely familiar with all of that stuff. So for me, I came into it basically just being excited because it was a Telltale game.
Okay.
I've really liked what these guys have been doing over like the last few years. Like obviously The Walking Dead blew everybody away, and I was so happy with The Wolf Among Us. I mean, like, you know, that's just one of those games where I was really skeptical about whether or not they were going to be able to do justice to the original comic book, but it captured the flavor and the tone. Without necessarily spoiling anything for anybody. So, you know, going into this, you know, obviously I knew it's like, you know, the big thing is going to be the courtly intrigue, because that's what Game of Thrones is really most well known for, is the backstabbing and the politics and the people fighting for power and all that. And it's not something that Telltale has really done in the past. Like, you know, Walking Dead was pretty much straightforward. These are life and death survival choices, and then...
You know what? Here's the thing with Telltale, and I noticed that they've been able to take every one of their franchises and their games and use choices to sort of extract a different type of emotion from their audience. For example, Walking Dead was all about fear and survival, and through it, you were able to their choices. You had to think about that.
Yeah, especially things like, you know, teaching Clem to shoot
and all
that sort of thing. That was kind of just like, this choice now will determine whether or not she lives or dies in the future. Right?
And Wolf Among Us was more about emotional retribution and, you know, trying to define yourself as good or bad. And these kind of moral implications while trying to redeem yourself in the eyes of the people. And Game of Thrones is more like espionage and
conspiracy,
right?
Political
And
intrigue.
it's funny, it's the same mechanic throughout all of them, but somehow they're still able to twist this mechanic and serve different purposes, which to me is just, I don't know any other game company that can sort of take the same mechanic, twist it, and make something almost feel fresh and brand new.
For me, the most amazing thing about Telltale is, it's like, stop and think about this. How many other companies have taken on so many licensed properties and not screwed them up?
Do you remember when games and movies movies and shows turned into games used to feel, they were always terrible.
Yeah, they were terrible.
They were always terrible. Always terrible. Ooh, that's always such a treat to see again. But they were always so terrible. But these franchises have been done justice, and you feel like they're add-ons, like they're not overshadowing.
Yeah, I mean, there actually was a Game of Thrones RPG that was put out a couple of years ago. That fell into the latter category.
Didn't even hear about it, so...
Yeah, it was not great.
Obviously, it was terrible. And they've done so good, and I'm falling in love with the characters, especially in Game of Thrones. The Foresters, never heard of them before. Obviously, we're not mentioned, but I'm loving them.
Yeah, now you really care about this family.
I care about this family. Like, I want this family. I want their honor. I want them to...
Yeah, like that's kind of the interesting thing about this game is the whole thing is, it's like, what would you do to protect your family?
Exactly, and I'm feeling this plight. I'm feeling, that... Oops. I'm feeling this plight. I'm feeling the plight of this family, and I'm like, all right, now I'm going to do whatever it takes. But I'm also designing, sort of the characters, like their own sort of like feelings. For example, back in court, I'm sort of getting her to move away from her family. She's in court. She's under Lady Marjorie, and I want her to sort of, now she's finding her own. And I'm not really leaning towards the family's plight. Some of the choices I was given, I made them seem like they were my mother's and not. Was it Mia? What's her the oldest?
Oh, I can't remember her name.
The oldest Forester female. Yeah, I made it seem like it was all her mothers because I wanted her to sort of be on her own. And I like how we're not just one character this time.
Yeah.
And that it could have been done really well or really poorly.
Yeah, that's true. That would have been so easy to mess up.
So easy to mess up, but they were able to do it in such a way that I was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna make Asher, badass, and I'm gonna make Ethan realize that he has to step up, and he's gonna be more. I have to change. I have to be the head of the family now. This is what
that lasted.
Yes, for the length of it. But but I said to myself, I'm gonna put myself in Ethan's shoes, and what would Ethan feel right now?
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, Ethan, you're gonna want to be the head of the family. You're gonna have to change. And I made those choices reflect that. I made choices with Mia where I was like, all right, I'm in King's Landing now. I've been away from my family as a handmaiden to Lady Marjorie. Lady Marjorie has been really good for me. And I'm going to do whatever it takes to protect that.
You got to play the system.
I got to play the system. That's it, all right? And that was I thought it was really exciting that I could design choices for different characters.
That create different characters,
different character personas at the same time as affecting the overall story. And you can really screw that up. That's so easy to screw up. But they all felt connected, yet I didn't feel like I was forced into this pigeonhole of decisions. So really love that about this game, about the series.
And I guess you're not missing the lack of traditional adventure game puzzles and all the other stuff.
No, see, that's a thing. I thought that's what I was saying. Is like I was surprised that they were able to keep this mechanic going for so long without feeling dry and mundane. The typical adventure game puzzles, like from King's Quest and Police Quest and those other kind of games, I love those. I'm surprised that they're not involved, but at the same time, the story and the narrative is so skewed in such a great way. You don't even I don't even notice it because it's so well done. Oh, and here we go.
The opening credits.
So there we go. We went through the episode 2 intro. Asher's here. Tons of action, tons of bloodshed. You know what? Well worth it. I loved it every step of the way. I played through it. Going to play through it multiple times to get a different perspective easily.
For whatever reason, it's like this is a 6-episode series instead of the traditional 5. I don't know why they're doing that, but yeah, this is 6 instead of 5.
And that's fine. The more the better for me. I love it. I can't wait to see some of the popular characters. Like we've already seen Tyrion, we've already seen Cersei.
And Jon Snow.
Jon Snow
put in his appearance in.
You know what?
episode
Everyone's
2, so.
waiting for Daenerys. That's what we want. Show me Daenerys. Give me Daenerys.
I wonder if they actually are going to look in any sort of excuse for her to appear.
Oh, so. She'll be here.
Okay.
Yeah, we're in Yunkai. So I'm Drekken.
And I'm Wayne.
And this is the playthrough of
Game of Thrones.